Good evening. I'm Scott Lambert, Chairman, and I'd like to call to order the May 10th, 2023 East Whiteland Township Supervisor meeting. Please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would like to introduce our attendees here on the main table. To my far right is Peter Fixler, Supervisor, Rich Orlo, Vice Chairman, Bernadette Kearney, our solicitor on my left, and Township Manager Steve Brown. Starting off the meeting, we had executive sessions that were held on May 2nd at 3:30 for legal, personnel, and real estate issues, and on May 10th at 4:30 this afternoon for legal, personnel, and real estate issue. Chris Yeager, I'll turn over the first item on the agenda to you.
I want to introduce, we had a vacancy this year, and we decided to look deeply into our field, and we found a veteran officer. His name is John Albany. If you can come up here, John. John comes to us from Lansdale Borough. He has been a police officer in Lansdale for 5 years. He was a previous police officer for a year prior to that. He is a DARE teacher. He was a DARE teacher in Lansdale Borough. He won Officer of the Year in 2021. He's a defense tactics instructor, and he moved to East Whiteland about 2 years ago with his wife, Samantha. And he didn't move here with his son, but he now has a son, Michael, who lives with them here. So we're very proud to have him aboard. Like I said, he's a seasoned veteran, and we expect he's going to work out well. So we're just here to introduce him to the board tonight. So if we could give him a round of applause for coming to East Whiteland. Let me comb my hair first. Who was that? Thank you. You want to come up and shake the board's hands? Thank you, John. And thank you, Mrs. Albany, for attending tonight, and his parents are here as well. Congratulations.
Moving on to item C, maybe you can assist me on this one, Catherine, is that we had talked last month that I wanted to kind of bring the residents up to date as far as the amount of grant activity that the township has been involved in recently and in the past, and to understand that this grant money certainly helps keep the cost down of our taxes and funds a lot of activities that occur that the residents do not have to bear the cost of. In this particular grouping that we've put together, we have 15 grants in the past 12 months that we've put together, and the highest grant received has been $3 million, and then the smallest grant that we've had has been $7,165, and that was for Chris Yeager's Bulletproof Vest. $7,165. But along the way, we've received $535,000, $195,000, $378,000, $700,000, $1.7 million. If we get the raise grant award, that's $24 million. We've got $500,000, $250,000, $433,000, $76,000, $200,000, and $50,000. So you can see the, I'm not sure what the total number is, value on all of those.
Over $30 million.
Over $30 million of grant money that's come into the township, can come into the township.
And we're still moving because I understand we just heard today that we received a Vision Partnership grant from Chester County today for
Oh, we did?
$50,000.
How much?
$50,000.
Awesome.
So that's yet another one to add to the list.
Great. So we're going to try to keep this updated and keep everyone appraised on these numbers. Really does help financially stabilize our budgets. Moving on, I'll call John Nagel, who has nothing to say. The sewer sale, there are no updates to the sewer sale at all. We're still in a situation where we're in a hold pattern based upon the lawsuit that exists out there. The Route 30 corridor, maybe John and I can talk about that, but briefly, the RAISE committee, which includes John, myself, and our Delta consultants who have been working on the Route 30 corridor improvements, which the grant request has been for $23 million. In the past 2 weeks, we have had some local meetings to try to iron out a few details, and then this week we ended up going to Washington, D.C. with Delta's lobbyists and to meet with our congressional representatives and the U.S. Department of Transportation. And if you want to add any more.
Yes, it was a very busy week. Before that, we had a virtual meeting with DVRPC to work out some issues with respect to our grant for 2023. There's a new Director of Regional Planning with DVRPC, Michael Boyer, and so I think there'll be some follow-up meetings with that to work through some of the congestion management process issues that we discussed, and so we'll be reporting back to the board when those discussions happen and we have more information to report on that. As Scott said, we did meet through most of the day on Monday, although there was nothing in session in Washington, but we met with mostly the staff folks from Houlihan's office, Senator Casey and Senator Fetterman, and we have a fairly strong ongoing relationship with the U.S. Department of Transportation. We've had some discussions for over a year now with Charles Small, who's the Deputy Assistant Secretary, and so he's the person that Secretary Buttigieg relies on for these grant recommendations. So we're going to just keep working this process, and the deadline for announcement of an award of the grants is June 28th. So it's not that far away and getting close to finishing up our work with that. That's all I have to report.
I'll just add, we were finalists last year. 166 projects were awarded last year. Only 2 hit the state of Pennsylvania. there's a lot of feeling that this particular year that the number of grants reaching the state of Pennsylvania should exceed the two that occurred last year. Philadelphia and Pittsburgh were the recipients last year. And they've received an additional 100 applications versus last year. So it's competitive, but we have a lot of strong indications and we feel good about going forward on it. Any comments, Donna? Our next item would be an update for the campus master plan. John?
There was a meeting recently with the architect regarding the campus and the consideration of where we are with the project. We're kind of at a crossroads whether we continue on with the police station design or we come up with some other options. So I believe probably at the next board meeting there will be an action be considered by the board with respect to work by the architect to take a look at another concept towards maybe building an all-in-one building on the campus footprint. So we'll have more to report at that time, but I thought we had a productive meeting with the architect.
Donna, I don't know if you're controlling the pictures or Zach. 29 and 30? So to give a status update on the 29 and Route 30 beautification project, which began a few years ago. After some delays by the contractor, they apparently broke ground this morning. And so this is a rendition of what we hope that somewhat what it'll look like, but it'll certainly improve that triangle of concrete that exists out there at this point in time. So that should be, John, what was it, 2 weeks? Yeah?
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, depending on the weather. All right. Steve Brown, if you can give an update on the Certificate of Achievement.
Sure, Scott, thank you. This is, I don't know how many years running now, maybe 6, 7, I believe, somewhere in that range, that the township has been recognized and awarded a Certificate of Achievement from the Government Finance Officers Association for our annual comprehensive financial report. This award is for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2021. And the report is known as the CAFR, which stands for Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. And I'm just going to read a brief press release that GFOA provided to us. The GFOA of the United States and Canada has awarded their Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting to East Whiteland Township for its annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ended December 31st, 2021. The report has been judged by an impartial panel to meet the high standards of the program, which includes demonstrating a constructive spirit of full disclosure to clearly communicate its financial story and motivate potential users and user groups to read the report. Their Certificate of Achievement is the highest form of recognition in the area of governmental accounting and financial reporting, and its attainment represents a significant accomplishment by a government and its management. So again, this is 6, 7 years in that the township has been recognized for this, and I'd like to thank John and our financial staff, Usha Hogan, who I believe is on Zoom. Maybe, excuse me, I'm not sure, Joe Meehan and Dave Stone for preparing the report, and they're the ones who deserve the accolades and recognition.
John, you're back up on Key Bank.
About a year ago, the staff began taking a look at our banking and investment relationship. Interest rates started to spike. Back in August, we received the proceeds of the sewer sale, so there was really a critical need for us to look at how we invest our money. The first move that the board did agree to last year, and we've been investing it since then. Current interest rates for the sewer money is about 4.75%. If you take that $55 million that came in from the sale of the system, it brings in about $2.5 million a year if you annualize the interest on that, and that at least pays for the debt service. It was mentioned earlier tonight about the sewer sale. It's actually been appealed by the Office of Consumer Affairs in Pennsylvania. Not likely to get overturned, but more of a reduction in the rates that Aqua committed to in its sale or purchase document. The next step towards that was to take some more of the money that the incumbent Key Bank had invested for us. It wasn't that long ago, and I think folks, whether they invest their own money or for other purposes, we were only getting 0.1% interest on our balances. And so the consensus was to go out and purchase some treasury bills. We bought $12 million worth of treasury bills earlier this year, and we are pleased to report that the return on those investments are 4.71%, and that'll carry through at least until June 1st, and hopefully through some of that, maybe not at that higher rate, but it'll be at competitive rates throughout the rest of the year and into the future. So that was the second step. That investment will bring in over $500,000 in interest earned over an annual. The last one was we really want to get more out of the rest of the funds that the township holds. What I would label as excess funds, and the banks like to keep a compensating balance to cover our fees. But we found that the balances we were keeping were highly in excess of the amounts needed to cover our fees. So through the work of the staff, Usha, Joe, also the advice of the board, as well as the advice of our pension trustees, we negotiated a higher interest rate, again, from 0.1% to 4% on our compensating balances, which correlates into almost $500,000 additionally for a entire year in interest earnings. So we've made pretty good progress so far with this project. The proposals from the banks and investment firms are going to be due the end of this month, and we'll be bringing those back to the board and to the trustees to make decisions on those relationships going forward. That's a briefing of what I have to report. I'd be glad to answer any questions that anyone has.
Don, any Zoom questions? Any questions from the board? I know everyone's worked real hard on this, and it's gotten going round and round, but I think we got a pretty good situation here and a good deal. And thanks to you and Usha for spearheading that project.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
From cash accounts to open space, Catherine, if you can give us an update on this long-standing project for the Baldus property?
Yeah, so the board might remember that several months ago, Tim Gallagher, who's the EPA representative, had given a presentation on what they were expecting the next steps to be. And we have a further update from EPA that they are preparing the record of decision, which is going to specifically stipulate that the responsible party, who's the property owner, does need to complete what they call thermal treatment of the soils. And this is the presentation that Tim had made previously, where they were going to install these mini well systems that would heat the soil and then take out more of the contamination. There's going to be about 60 total of these systems that are going to go in. Sometime after the July to August timeframe is when the record of decision is going to be issued. And then ultimately, the end of 2024 will be the completion date for the soil remediation to take place. So I know that's a little bit of a long time from now, but I'll have a further update once those thermal treatment systems do go into place.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, Catherine, I guess if you can give us a little update here on the Phoenixville Pike Sidley Road intersection improvements. I see there are a few people here from the neighborhood that are impacted. Welcome.
So this is related to a grant that actually Charlestown Township was the applicant for, as they are the permittee for the signal, but what's unique about it is that it's situated within the entire confines of East Whiteland, while Charlestown does hold the permit, so that's why they applied for the grant. So they were successful in receiving that grant, and in the meantime, what's been happening in the background is TPD, Traffic Planning and Design, on behalf of Charlestown Township, has been working on a portion of the design, and McMahon, on behalf of East Whiteland, has been working on a portion of the design. And so as we move closer and closer toward final design, now we're at a point where we'd like to schedule a joint public meeting between Charlestown and East Whiteland so that we can hear the concerns of the public and incorporate them into the final design. So we do have some additional dates for the board to consider for that purpose, and we'll just circulate them tonight, and you can let us know if any of those work. But it's also just so the public is aware. We are going to be engaging the immediately impacted property owners before that public meeting so that we can make sure to incorporate any of their one-on-one concerns. So this would be a more high-level public meeting, and those dates are potentially June 29th, July 6th, July 10th, or the 11th, and that would be at 6:30 p.m. And we'll look to the board probably sometime after this meeting to firm up that date, but just so the public's aware of the time frame that we're looking for here. And I think we do have a general just concept of the intersection, and this is to install turn lanes and potentially also some additional pedestrian improvements depending on what PennDOT's feedback is.
Are you talking about the aerial?
With the turn, yeah. So this would have been the concept plan. What's up on the screen right now is what was submitted with the grant application. You can see it's still pretty high level with this aerial overlay. All of the work is proposed to be completed within the confines of the existing right-of-way, but there are obviously some property owners along that stretch of roadway who are interested in the road potentially getting closer to their homes, so we'll need to work through those issues.
Okay, so I don't know if we want to try to, we'll nail down those dates maybe after the meeting, and we can get together and see what kind of works, or if we want to talk about it now, I don't care.
I just can't make the 15th. I know that.
And I know I'm the 29th, I'm out of the country.
I thought it was the 1st or the 8th.
I think we're looking at July 6th, 10th, or 11th.
So June 1st is...
The June dates are gone, yes. The potential dates are July 6th, 10th, or 11th, because I believe we just heard June 29th. It does not work.
Right.
You said June? Oh, July, I'm looking at June. July, what were the dates again? Just so I wrote
The
it.
6, 10, and 11.
Okay. Is it daytime or a nighttime?
6:30 PM.
That's definitely night. Monday looks like fire company. 6th is fine. 11th is okay, other than 3 nights in a row, so 6th is definitely your first choice.
Sorry. July 6th, I'm not available either. That's another one out.
Then the 11th. I'm okay with that. Maybe not happy, but okay.
We're gonna have to reconvene and go through these dates again. I'm not around. So we'll work it out and let everyone in Township know when that's gonna be.
There's time.
Yeah. Okay. Catherine, you're still up.
Okay, all right. So the township received an allocation of about $1.35 million in funds through the Federal American Rescue Plan Act. And of that allocation, about $800,000 was utilized over the last 12 months to upgrade the HVAC system in the township building where we are now. And some smaller dollar amounts were utilized to help with summer camp scholarships and also for the People's Pantry. So that leaves approximately $500,000 remaining still available. And it was the board's desire for the township to explore rolling out a mini grant program to potentially make awards not to exceed $50,000 to eligible agencies, typically nonprofits, that are either directly located within the municipal boundary or that impact residents within the municipal boundary with their services. And so what's been presented to the board is exactly that. It's a sample grant application and program guidelines for your consideration that we're looking for your feedback on for staff to move forward with rolling this out. And if the board were to move forward with rolling this out, we would anticipate making applications available pretty soon after the board meeting with probably likely a 30-day window.
Do we know if the surrounding townships also have similar programs or intentions? Because the way it's worded now, it's not just East Whiteland Township, but the boundaries of the Great Valley School District. So probably priority should be East Whiteland since we got the money, but if we want to accept applications from surroundings, it'd be nice to know what they might be doing.
One of the ways that we might address that is in the application, there is a question that could be refined if they received other ARPA funds, as we call them. And so we can refine that question to be very clear so that we can get that type of feedback if they've already received funding from either another municipality or the county or via some other allocation.
Received or applied for. Okay.
Right, and we can ask if we haven't regarding, how East Whiteland Township residents and/or businesses or institutions, benefit. I think the idea behind this is that not every nonprofit in East Whiteland serves 100% of, people or clients or East Whiteland Township residents. And so vice versa, the same. So the money needs to stay as much as possible in East Whiteland, but I think we all know that if you provide money to any nonprofit, it's going to serve people outside the township. So that's why it also mentions Great Valley School District.
That's fair.
Thank you. Now we're going to move into the entertainment portion of the program. Steve, if you can start us off with the summer concert series update.
Yeah, thankfully the entertainment is me just updating people on concerts. Yes, this is the entertainment portion of the board briefings. The summer concert series will kick off next Wednesday evening, May 17th. We have a series of 4 concerts in Valley Creek Park, May 17th, June 21st, July 19th, and August 16th. The concerts all begin at 6:30. It's family friendly. People can bring blanket, chairs, picnic basket. There usually is some food vendors available there. Again, it's in Valley Creek Park. It's being branded as the Chill on the Hill, and it definitely is a hill. And it is a great place for concerts because you're looking down to our little amphitheater. May 17th is an Eagles tribute band known as Winslow. June 21st, it is the Chill on the Hill Blues Fest, featuring 3 bands, Papa Chubby Band, Deb Callahan Band, and Norman Taylor. July 19th features Lauren Hart, who is a local artist.
I assume she'll probably be singing all the Flyers fight songs.
God Bless America, for sure.
She's got to start off with God Bless America.
That's that Lauren Hart, right?
Can we put her in a request?
It is that Lauren Hart,
That's
yes.
great.
Yeah, it is that Lauren Hart, and so yeah, you guys can put your requests in from the crowd. Special guest Alexis Cunningham, who I also believe is local. And August 16th, Big Sandy and his Fly Right Boys with special guest, the Big Takeover Band. These are free concerts.
I'll add that in addition to the food that's available during the concerts, we're continuing to allow the sale of beer through Locust Lane as well. Good. Donna, you and I are up next on some, let me give you a background here.
Really you.
In an attempt to, over the past year or so, trying to get information out to everybody as quickly and expediently as possible, we've kind of run into a problem of collecting emails. We've gone like nowhere with it. So what we decided to do is to try to incentivize people to submit emails to us so we can get information out to you quickly, important information. We're going to offer a program where give us your email, you will be registered in a lottery to win Phillies tickets. And the first giveaway is for a game on June, I thought it was June 10th. June 10th is the game. And the drawing is going to occur on June 2nd. There's going to be 2 sets of a pair given out. So as long as you're an East Whiteland Township resident, you're eligible for this. There'll be a second drawing for a game in September, John, is it? Is the second game?
Yeah, I think it's the Mets in like the 3rd week of September.
Yeah, okay. And the game in June is against the Los Angeles Dodgers. So, you know, please take advantage. And there is a link on the webpage,
Correct.
on our East Whiteland Township page that you can sign up for and get in.
It is the 23rd of September. Both dates are Saturday night.
Saturday night game, September 23rd is the second one, but we'll have information on that. So June 10th is Saturday night.
We've actually already had about 10 people so far sign up for different newsletters. and agendas.
Okay, good.
So only the new signups have the chance at the Phillies, not everybody that's already signed up? Okay, just
Yeah.
making sure. That's what I
Yeah.
thought. Okay.
Scott? Or is it 2023 people? I don't know that we had any rule, to be honest with you.
You had to throw a phone into that, jeez.
Lawyer, what can I tell you?
I would call who's ever in the pile, including those that were previously in there,
Okay.
put them in the pile.
Okay, so everybody that has signed up and
So,
anybody signing up
That's,
will
the
be in the
goal is to
pile.
be signed up, so.
Okay, got it.
We shouldn't
We'll make that
penalize,
change.
we shouldn't penalize those that
No, I agree.
were ahead of the curve.
Except for us, if we're signed up, we don't get the
No.
tickets. Okay, just making sure.
There you go again, Rich. We
Just-
knock it off.
He wants everything.
Disclaimer.
Okay. Any questions? No? All right, good. Next, Donna, you can kind of give an update on the online park reservation system?
Yeah, so I'm actually really pleased to announce that we are getting ready to roll out tomorrow at probably 9 o'clock in the morning, online reservations for any of for the 2 parks right now that we currently rent pavilions for, and and the different fields. So you'll be able to actually log on to Park and Recreation Rentals, and you will have to register an account, and then you get to look at the calendar. It's in a working calendar, and it'll say whether something's open or not opened, and it'll ask for your address. So all residents that rent parks rent for $100. If you're a non-resident or an organization, it's $200. We also rent the amphitheater, which is $50 for residents and $100 for non-residents. But we will be available if you need any help logging on or creating an account.
Okay, thank you. Agenda items number 3, public hearings. I'm going to turn over to Bernadette Kearney to handle.
Do we have our court reporter coming up? The first public hearing we have on is the zoning ordinance, zoning map amendment for 164 Conestoga Road, which has previously been continued. And I want to open this hearing and continue it again on the record. We are not at this time ready to make a determination as to that rezoning. So I would ask for a motion to continue this to the June 14th, 2023 Board of Supervisors meeting at 6:30 p.m.
Motion continue to June 14th, the 164 Conestoga Road zoning map amendment.
Second that? I second that. All in favor?
Aye. Aye?
Aye, you have 3 passes for the continuation.
So that hearing is closed, and the second hearing we have on the agenda is for a subdivision and land development ordinance, a text amendment. This is an ordinance amending the code of East Whiteland Township, Chapter 175, subdivision and land development, amending the provisions regarding plan processing procedures and content of required plans for preliminary and final development applications to include a sound and vibration study and related requirements. I'm going to mark a series of exhibits. B1 will be the April 7th, 2023 email to the Chester County Planning Commission. B2, the April 7th, 2023 email to East Whiteland Township Planning Commission. B3, the April 21st, 2023 email and letter to the Daily Local with the legal notice and proposed ordinance. B4, the April 21st, 2023 email and letter to the Law Library with a copy of the attested proposed ordinance. B5, the Chester County Planning Commission review letter. B6, the proof of publication of the hearing this evening. B7, the legal notice, and B8, the proposed ordinance. Just a brief background, Zach Barner and I had taken a look at the subdivision land development ordinance and added this in. It's similar to a traffic study. We're asking for certain sized buildings to provide information as to sound and vibration. And if you had particular questions, I'm sure Zach and I could answer those.
Donna, I guess we have some questions?
Oh, no, I can't see, that's why.
Oh, you're having that problem
I
too?
could go like that.
Hi, I thought you were waving to me.
Yeah, I'm having that problem.
So I think it's time to make a motion to get some
No, I think there
lines.
was a gentleman in
I
the
know.
audience did that.
Tim, would you come forward? So anyway, so everyone understands that the sun is setting over there and it's blinding us all over here. We're not losing it.
Block the sun.
Thank you.
My name's Tim Caban, 1050 West King Road. My question is with regard to the sound and vibration study. Is there a distance from an existing building in the proposed code amendments? A particular concern with this issue are many historic buildings that are close to major roadways. And so I'd be interested to know if there's a particular distance that either does or does not trigger a study.
Yeah, so the way the ordinance is set up is that it's triggered more so by the size of the proposed building, not so much what it's around. So the idea is to provide this information up front as part of the land development review process. We can determine what those impacts, whether they're sound or vibration, on the surrounding property. So that's actually a really good example. We don't call out specifically historic resources or anything as, like, I'll say, noteworthy things to work around or impacts to mitigate. We basically want to know the information up front and be able to work through with the developer what types of project-specific precautions or mitigation efforts they can take to reduce impact. So it's not specific to historic, it's not specific to anything other than the size of the building that would trigger it, really.
Okay. But it also wouldn't specifically ignore historic, right?
Oh, certainly not. No, and that's a really good example of the types of things we want to understand, so we're not creating issues for surrounding property owners or historic resources.
Anything else, Donna, out there?
If the board had any further questions, or if they would like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve text amendment regarding the planning, processing, content of required plans and sound and vibration study in the subdivision and land development ordinance.
Second?
Okay, second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And passes.
Thank you.
Is Lou handling the tall one or you? You, okay.
Zach?
Sure.
Or is it Steve?
That could be any number of
I think it's going to be a combination of me, Zach, and Allison.
I'll try not to drop my microphone.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm short, so I was trying to angle it down, but maybe I can just turn it this way. Thanks. Thanks, everyone. Sorry about that.
I can, I guess, kick it off. At the last month's meeting, the board discussed whether or not they would be inclined to accept dedication of the roadways for these two developments. These are the new communities, I should say, on Flat Road, which is the reserve at Great Valley, and the one on Church Road, which is the Great Valley Crossing. Some of the concerns that the board outlined were trying to get a better understanding of, well, there's been some settlement and sinkhole issues there over the course of the development, and the board was interested in some sort of financial mechanism to offset the cost of any repairs over I'll say the coming years, and also wanted some clarity on the status of conveyance of the sanitary sewer to Aqua. So I'm happy to elaborate further or kick it over to Allison, who's worked with Toll to kind of address some of those issues since the last meeting.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Lou was here last month. I had a conflict, but I've been the one that's primarily been involved in these two communities. So just to start with probably the easiest thing, sanitary sewer, I understand there was a question about that. Aqua has agreed to accept dedication of the sanitary sewer directly. We have prepared, they actually had prepared deeds of, or grants of easement and bills of sale for both communities, which have been executed by Toll and submitted to Aqua. It's my understanding that there were a couple of punch list items specific to sanitary sewer that needed to be addressed. Chuck Faulkner from Pinoni is involved in that aspect of it, and we're currently waiting for his clean letter, and then that paperwork would be finished. So when we had laid out proposed draft deeds of dedication, I've specifically excluded sanitary sewer in that verbiage, and to the extent that it would take Aqua a while to record things or whatever, that is specifically reserved out of the offer of dedication. The second part of this relates to the concern about sinkholes. So after last month's meeting, I met both with Toll and then with staff. We all met together to talk about a proposal for the township. I understand at the last meeting there was an initial suggestion of an extended 5-year maintenance period. And the first thing I sort of wanted to set up is the distinction between the regular statutory MPC maintenance period, which is 18 months, and that's securing structural integrity of physical improvements like stormwater pipe, curbing, things of that nature. I don't believe there's anything in either of these communities that would be any different than any other community. However, we do understand the board's concern about the sinkholes. So what we did is we looked at a few different aspects and options and explored different things. And what Toll's proposal is for both communities would be an extended 3-year time period from the acceptance of dedication, so essentially double the 18-month maintenance period, specifically for if there is a sinkhole. And what we would do is anytime there was a sinkhole, the township would notify Toll Brothers. Toll Brothers would mobilize if there's something that needs to be secured right away, put up safety barriers, et cetera. If it's an emergency, it would need to be done immediately. And then I've learned more about this than I probably thought I would ever know, but apparently some sinkholes need to be grouted and some don't. So depending on whether grouting's involved, the discussion was typically without grouting, they can mobilize and get something repaired in 2 weeks. With grouting, that can take up to 30 days. Toll would also propose to put money in escrow for each community in the amount of $30,000, which would cover the average repair that they've experienced in these communities, plus funds for inspections, et cetera. The township would have that money in the event that Toll did not complete the repairs within a certain amount of time, and also it would be available if for some reason Toll did not reimburse for inspections in a timely manner or something like that. So that is what we are proposing to try to address the sinkhole issue.
Can I ask you, the 30,000, is it held to what period of time?
That would be for the 3-year period of time. And to further clarify, if for some reason the township had to draw down on it, it's required to be replenished. So throughout the 3-year period, it should be a $30,000. It's not as though it's a one and done $30,000.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable. I think it's fair, and thank Toll for understanding this situation and the circumstances at each development. So I'm okay with 3 years.
I would, well, are there any comments from the residents that are here or online? Okay.
This is Edwin from Valley. One one question, like, if multiple sinkhole happen, what happen? 30,000 will cover only one sinkhole, or it's going to cover multiple sinkholes on the road.
So sort of initially, tolls required to repair the sinkhole. That money is there essentially as sort of an insurance policy, so to speak, for the township. That would only be drawn upon if toll did not complete its obligations in a timely manner with the township. If the township had to draw down on the funds, toll would be required to replenish that $30,000. So what I was saying earlier is that's not just one flat amount that's going to cover whatever's out there. Toll would be responsible for whatever costs are related to a sinkhole repair, regardless of what that amount is.
And just to be clear, this is just sinkholes in the roads?
In the roads, yes. Yeah, and if your question is about on your lot, that is your responsibility under standard HOA declaration language. You are responsible for the maintenance of your unit, which would be your lot.
I have a question. I don't know if there's anyone from the homeowners association present. Could I ask you, at this point in time, are you contemplating any adjustment to your association to cover anything that would occur after the 3-year period of this arrangement? You weren't planning to? Okay.
Yeah, so after the 3-year period, this is for, just to, again to clarify, this is for the roads specifically. So we'll be taking over the roads at that point. They would be on us. And I believe, at least in the case of the Reserve at Great Valley, they do have insurance for sinkhole formation in common area. Is that correct?
I don't know off the top of my head. I can follow up and
That is an obligation in that HOA declaration. So
that was, with that development, let's say at the time, that was sort of a known issue more so than the other ones. So there were requirements that were, they were obligated to satisfy.
Yeah, that particular development went through at a later time through the approvals process than Great Valley Crossing, and there were specific provisions in the township's decision that required sinkholes to be specifically addressed, including insurance in those documents.
And Alice may be touching on this. I know on the agenda it says consider offer of dedication. Al had just sent back, I forgot whether it was yesterday or today, some revisions that need to be made to the deed of dedication. So we are working on the language of the deed of dedication at this point. So we don't have deed of dedication documents for you to sign, but we did want you to see the sinkhole remediation agreements and be comfortable with those.
Yeah, and I would say those were comments on the legal descriptions, which will get cleaned up and resubmitted to the.
So I guess just a procedural question, the clarification for me a little bit as well, and I guess I'll ask Bernadette directly, is the township positioned to accept dedication tonight, subject to those cleanup items? Or is this something that we should clean up in advance of the June meeting for a formal action?
We could do either. There will be some language, Allison, that we had talked about
yes,
to address some of John Neal's concerns, that any sinkhole that we were going to put in the deed of dedication, that any sinkhole that starts on a property and comes into the street would be the responsibility of the homeowner.
Right.
The sinkholes have to originate in the street for John's crew to be taking care of those.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly, yes. And that language is fine with toll.
I'm okay with making the motion tonight, subject to the documents being subject to the satisfaction and approval of township solicitor.
I'll second that.
Consider it a motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate you working with us to resolve this.
Thank you.
Thanks. Sure, if you can come to the mic.
Last month when this came up, we were talking...
Could your name and address?
Derek Jamison, 107 Sweetwater in Great Valley Crossing. Last month when we were talking about, I know, is dedication of like the cartway versus the curbing. Would the dedication include the curbing as well, or is this still just limited to the
It would include the curbing. We'll clarify, part of the point of contention, I think, in the meeting was clarifying, we'll be inserting some language about cosmetic repairs. So for example, if a contractor were to chip the curb and it doesn't create a functional issue for conveying the drainage,
Yeah.
the township would not step in and repair that just from like a cosmetic standpoint, but functionally, as it relates to the actual storm sewer, we would. So it's cartway, curb, really nothing beyond the curb line.
Yep. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions at this time? Okay. Moving forward is our sometimes car salesman, Chris Yeager, who is not trying to sell us a car this time.
Now, we're just seeking approval for the advertising on municipal bid for a 2015 Ford truck. That's all.
That's not what's on the agenda.
No, on the agenda is the hiring of police officers.
Hiring of police officers.
Vacancies?
You're getting back at me, aren't you? Or Donna is. Yeah.
You kind of segued him
Yeah,
into
I left
car
myself
salesman.
open for that.
It was his fault. Yep.
But, by the way, yeah, you can have the car. We'll move on then.
You're up here.
That's 4B, Donna, 4B.
So 4B is we're looking to the approval of hiring police officers to fill vacancies in the police department. We have several at this point. Some are some unfilled vacancies that have been there for a while. There will be promotions and vacancies filled to fulfill this requirement in 4B.
They're all at the officer level, patrol officer level? or
Well, the
not?
promotions are obviously not going to be at the officer level, but we will only be hiring new officers at a patrol level. So we're not doing any outside. It would be within our, whatever our policy is going to be at that time.
Will you be able to draw on the same pool that you drew on for Officer Albany, or it could start with more?
No, we won't.
No?
No.
That'd take be a longer process then?
It will, and I would like to address that at another time, but we plan on amending our procedure process, and once we have that decided how we're going to do that, because obviously the hiring for police officers has changed immensely in the last 2 to 3 years at least, but actually up to about 5.
And the number of vacancies is 4, correct? In a roundabout way.
There, if you're only counting moves, the actual vacancies or people, we're probably looking at 2. So once they move around and we backfill positions, we hope those 2 will fulfill that requirement.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Would you like to make a motion, Rich? Or Peter?
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve the hiring of police officers to fill the vacancies in the East Whiteland Police Department.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good. Aye.
You got it, Chris.
That's Catherine.
Move over to 4C. Catherine?
So this is a resolution for application to the DCED Greenways Trails and Recreation Grant Program. The township currently has an application before DCNR with their C2P2 grant program for Phase 2 of the Backton Hill Park improvements, and that scope of work is for additional trails, landscaping, and play equipment. So essentially what this is to, for some additional matching funds, so we can leverage both grant programs. So the grant request amount is $250,000.
Is this to help make a trail from the park to the Great Valley Community Organization, or is that different?
I don't believe it includes those improvements, no.
No, yeah, it's the connections, the 2 trail connections to the new neighborhood to the west, Malvern Crossing. It's the same application we've submitted to DCNR twice now, and then this one to DCED, additional landscaping, the native meadow, and this does include the bathroom.
On another note, how's the connection from the park through the trail down to the Chester Valley Trail coming? That's had quite a number of issues, hasn't it, with the stormwater and drainage?
They're pretty well stabilized, so the silt socket can move out.
Oh, it is? Okay, all right, good.
All right, would you like to make a motion?
Yep, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2020-2023 for DCNR GTRP grant for the Backton Hill Park.
There a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And passes. Greg, I think you're up pertaining to the tablets.
Yeah, I would just like to approval to advertise on municipal bid for tablets that are old and outdated that were used in our vehicles for communications with the county. So I'd just like the approval to sell 4 of those on municipal bid.
Do they still work?
Barely.
Barely. Okay,
Yeah, they're like a Windows 7 model, and
you're going to disclose that in the...
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good.
They're still functional for somebody else to use other than the function that we use them for, so they'll be fine for.
Peter, make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve advertising on municipal bid for motion computing tablets.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And passes. Now the car salesman is back for real. Chris?
So I would still like approval to advertise on municipal bid the 2015 Ford truck.
I don't know.
That's it.
I don't know.
Or it can sit out there.
What is it, pickup truck?
Yes.
Okay. How many miles is it on?
I believe about 85,
Okay. All right.
maybe 88. So we expect to do okay with it. It was a traffic unit, so it shouldn't have too much wear and tear.
Still doesn't have East Whiteland painted on the side, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, good.
Anything that has East Whiteland painted now, we get that removed professionally before we sell them as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, motion to approve advertising on municipal bid of the 2015 Ford truck.
Do I have a second?
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
3 votes. I'm waiting for you to come to the day when you ask for a Tesla, Chris. I'm waiting for the day when you sit there and ask for a Tesla.
I thought I already did that one day.
Yeah, I think you did when that guy was here from Tesla.
Okay. Mr. Barner, Planning and Development, if you'd lead us through this maze.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert. First item here is, it's shown as a consider rendering a decision for the following development applications. At the last month's meeting, the board considered a request for extension for 10 Malin Road. It's for the office flex building at the southern end of Malin Road. At that time, there was some additional discussion regarding sort of the proposed revision to the plan to reduce the amount of impervious and tree removal associated with the plan. So we thought it'd be good to have the applicant come back this month and kind of walk through that proposal, that revision to the plan, which differs from the one that's been before you for the last couple of meetings. So with that, I guess I'll turn it over to their attorney and or engineer to kind of just give a little status update and discuss with the board.
Good evening. Lou Caligreco here on behalf of 10 Malin Road. I guess the last time I was here on this project was probably 3 or 4 months ago when the issue of the tree waiver came up. I think we had vetted all of the other issues, and if we hadn't, we can certainly vet them tonight. But my understanding was it was an issue regarding trees. So we had requested a waiver at that time to take down a certain number of trees on the property, the 12-inch and more. When I say trees, we're talking about 12 inches in caliber or more. The original plan proposal, and Jack Robinson, our civil engineer, Jack, I don't know what plan is up there, if that's our plan or if that's the old plan. The old plan. The old plan had a parking area that really accounted for a substantial amount, well, not substantial, it accounted for probably the reason for losing about 7 trees. And we've gone back, and the board was not in favor of the waiver at that time. And we went back, and our client, Brian Forcine, asked us to take another look at the plan. The plan was overparked the first time, so the simple fix, what you would see in front of you now, the plan that Zach has been talking about, removes the parking area. That there was excess parking. And by the way, that's the most native wooded, that's a wrong use of words back to back, that area had the more pristine tree cover. The rest of the site did not. So the area with the more natural growth, the more natural tree cover has been preserved. And we probably have gone from eliminating 20 trees down to 13 trees. We've looked at every other way to eliminate additional disturbance, and it's not there. I mean, there are some necessities to developing the site the way it's proposed. And frankly, the development scheme you see in front of you is the only one that would be cost-effective to even do the site work that's associated with the project. So we've done what we can do. We've sharpened our pencils. I hope you can appreciate that. We've saved what we can save. Jack, if I'm missing anything on this, feel free to chime in. So, and look, I won't be disingenuous about this. Sometimes going back and sharpening your pencils works for the applicant as well. We effectuated some cost savings in, eliminating the parking area. I think we effectuated the savings of some disturbance, that we're saving there. No NPDES permit. We've managed to reduce the amount of coverage. Forget the trees, but we've managed to reduce the amount of coverage, brings us under an acre. So there are some good things associated with this plan. And I think it's the best we can do. And we're asking you tonight for an approval of what otherwise is a fairly simple building.
What are the trees' numbers now?
You're going to guess that, right?
I see only, if I didn't, I think somebody else would?
Yeah. So we had 22, there's 22 total trees that are in the total count. And the original plan showed 20 of them to be removed. And this plan shows 13, so 7 less trees to be removed. Yes, so the area in green, and this, I think this is worth noting, because my client told me, I worked in this job back in, 2008, when we came through with a similar plan, and, you know why that probably died, because of the economy, but we had a similar plan back then, and they had done some tree thinning, I'll call it, in the area of the building. So that area has already been, had some trees removed, but I can tell you the area to the back, we think has never been forested or anything. So by taking that parking area away in the green area, we're preserving what's really never been forested. That's the area that backs up to the railroad there.
Clarification for me is there are two very large trees coming up from Route 30 they are part of the 13 being removed, correct? Now?
They are. It's difficult to save them, given that we have to have we're trying to formalize the pathway back to this area. It comes down over safety to have for fire access, truck access. There is, as you know, there is a driveway there now, but this is to improve it to the township standard. I mean, if there's a way that could be saved, the township wanted to see them saved, that would, we would work with you on that, but this is to comply with the standard for access.
And what is specifically that standard? Is the width of the driveway?
The width of the drive aisle, yeah. And I will also mention that they could be I'll say in danger, so to speak, anyway, because they're right by the gas, and as you know, there's a lot of pipelines through here. The pipeline company could decide to take those down at any time. I'm surprised they don't do it almost, because they are very close to the gas line, and the township sewer line runs through here too. I'm curious how long they honestly should stay, just given their proximity to the utilities.
How long's that sewer there? Because those trees are probably 75 years old or
They
more.
are. They're bigger trees, they are, and that's why I'm saying they might be endangering things, especially the gas. The gas is a little more of a concern than sewer, but both concern.
And the specification on the required width of the driveway is how many feet wide?
24 feet.
And if the trees were to stay, you could still make it 20 feet, 22 feet? Or even the 24, but put the trees in danger?
I think we believe that when you pave over the roots, this is not from engineering, this is more from a landscape architect's perspective. If you pave over what's in the tree canopy, you can kill the tree. And so there's one option is that you do it and you hope. And some people do that. You don't preemptively take it down, but yeah, Peter might have a different opinion about that. I don't know.
But the road's already paved. They're sitting out there, and there's a road already that is paved around them,
Yeah.
and they're still surviving.
We won't want to take them down. If the township would like to try to save them, we would certainly work with, yeah.
I'd have to look at the code specifically. I think that code requirement might be in zoning, so it would be a variance. I'll confirm that while we're talking here, but there's different areas where they discuss drive aisle widths. I believe this may be in the area related to parking, which was within zoning, so to narrow that would require a variance as well, regardless of some of the other things we're just talking about.
Even if it was narrowed, would narrowing the drive access help by a couple feet, or you don't know till you know?
I think you don't know till you know, is what
I
it
would
is.
agree with
you
that.
make your best attempt.
Could be the law of unintended consequences, where you do something and 5 years down the road, you get a negative result. That's too hard to predict.
Yeah.
How many trees are being replanted to make up for the ones? Any idea what that number is?
I don't have it off the top of my head. We had a landscape plan. We're replacing the trees, of course, that are being removed and more. There are, I think, maybe 5 more than required. And actually, with this layout, we could do even more. We didn't explore that so much because this is just effectively a very engineered sketch. We haven't resubmitted the plan with this new layout. We wanted to get your buy-in on the layout. But I know that as it is now, we already have more trees proposed than we need. But that, that's only one side of it. The other side is how much you're removing. I think to put in perspective, though, and this is something that because the ordinance is kind of vague, at least in the way it's written, anything's a woodland. So if none of this was woodlands, and all these 2 trees were woodlands, well, they'd be considered woodlands, and you only had these 2 trees. You couldn't remove even one, because that'd be 50%. And that's how the ordinance is written. So if you have a property, even just 1 tree, I don't know how far you take it, but that's how, so we're actually including these 2 trees in our count, just because, but would you count 2 trees as woodlands? I don't know. I mean, it's kind of an opinion, but the ordinance says you do, so we do. But it's easy to get to that 20%, very easy to get there. We're about, right now that we've removed this area, we're about 60% with removal. But as I said, we are preserving the area that is really the most mature woodlands to the back.
I appreciate the effort to kind of work with things, but I'm still concerned about, I'll be repetitive from last month in the sense that with the PFA, or the PFAS showing up in and around this property where the location is, removing a canopy like this, I'm not comfortable. I'm concerned also with some issues potentially with the water, drainage into Little Valley Creek. So I am still in a position where I'm going to dissent the waiver request.
And that is a concurrence with Scott on yours? Yeah,
I would concur.
Okay. I guess that's where we are. I don't know if we need to take a vote, or just that's the feedback you're looking for?
Well, there's no way to revise the plan otherwise. I mean, Brian, foreseeing the property owner, is sitting over there. Brian, you came in late, I think, to the discussion, and you heard Scott's rationale as to why he's not in favor of eliminating. So it doesn't make sense for us to go back. We've spent thousands of dollars trying to revise this plan to come up with this solution, and I don't think there's any solution that we could come up with that would satisfy the board, at least with comments I've heard, unless you're going to build a 1,000 square foot building, which is no one's going to do. So you might as well render a decision and we'll proceed from there.
Yes, so in your packages, we had drafted, Zach and I and Braun had drafted 2 proposed resolutions, one a conditional approval and one a denial. Because we are out of time there's no more extensions.
And is the draft resolution of denial on the basis of the not granting the waiver?
Yeah, there's a list of waivers. If you take a look at, I've got to tell you what page it's on. It starts on page 108. And you will see the waivers are listed as A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. You can deny all the waivers. You can go through each of them.
108?
108 now. I think it's before 108.
Oh, yeah, it's 105, yeah.
It's
a resolution denying the preliminary final land development plan.
Yep.
And blah, blah, blah. Okay.
I'll remind the board that when we appeared 3 or 4 months ago, all but the tree waiver was met favorably.
and the other waivers were okay with our engineer, if we are to deny this plan because of a denial of a waiver, isn't it more consistent to deny the plan because of the denial of the tree waiver versus all the waivers?
Yeah, you could do it that way, or you could deny all the waivers. We just have to provide the applicant with a written decision basically stating, here's why it's denied in order to give them the opportunity to appeal. So, right, you can just pick that one waiver, or you can pick all of them. And we're also indicating that they have to comply with the consultant's review letter, specifically the Arrow Consulting Review Letter dated October 17th, revised May 3rd.
And if denied and appealed, the review letters will end up as part of the record.
I'm sorry, what will end up?
The review letters will be part of the record.
Oh, yes.
By whoever reads it and says, okay. Well, I wouldn't deny, the only waiver sounds like will be denied is the tree.
Right.
I don't think it makes sense to deny the other waivers when our engineer recommends approval.
I agree with you.
So,
Just by that rationale, Rich, your consultants also recommended the tree waiver. The Planning Commission recommended the tree waiver unanimously. So that's why this comes with a little bit of a surprise, but it is what it is. All along, and in fact, the waivers were recommended on the plan, which took down 20 trees. Now we're taking down 13 trees. So a little bit of a disconnect here, but I just wanted to make sure the record was clear on that. All of the waiver requests were unanimously recommended by the Planning Commission.
So I'd like to make a motion to deny the, help me on there.
The plan.
The plan, based on the waiver, the tree waiver.
And my suggestion would be in compliance with the Arrow letter. Oh, and my suggestion would be in compliance with the Arrow letter of October 17th, revised May 3rd.
As read. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to oppose. I'm going to vote against. Okay.
Lou has indicated in the MPC, we'll provide that letter to you within 15 days.
Okay, thank you.
Zach, going to move on to the next one?
So, item 6D, this is a consideration of a final release of financial security for the Linden Hall development by Pulte Group. The remaining amount is $293,986.96, or 98 cents rather. We've gone back and forth with the development team on just kind of clarifying the request and the remaining escrow amount. We still need Arrow to go out and confirm all the previously outstanding work has been completed on the punch list. That punch list was prepared some time ago. I believe that most of it probably has been completed, but we need Arrow to just make that, to confirm that in the field. I know Ms. Zaro here represents the development group, and I would just ask that she provide us just a little time for Al to go out and verify all of those things, and then we can put this on the June agenda for formal action, if that's all right.
That's acceptable to us.
Just to clarify then, this item will be tabled until June? All right. So next item here is a presentation by Lamont Investment Partners. I believe Tom Bentley and his legal team's here to present their proposal for 310 Lancaster Avenue. This is the former Clues and Straw Ridge property. Lamont is proposing an apartment proposal, redevelopment at that site. Mr. Bentley was here at a previous month's meeting to present his sort of his architectural concept and the site plan. There's been some refinement of that plan, both on the architectural and sort of on the site plan side. So we thought it would be good for Mr. Bentley to come back and provide the board with an update, and then also just sort of get the thoughts on the board as to whether or not to move this forward through the formal adoption process. So, Tom, I can pull up your various display materials. Which one would you like to start with?
Why don't we start with what we have now?
Sure. So I'm going to pull up actually a street view if that's all right. There's Tom had provided some photographs earlier in the day. They just didn't come through super clearly, so I'm going to pull up street view if that's all right with everybody.
Yeah, so you're all familiar with the site. I just want to kind of remind you how bad it looks. That's the old Saab dealership, which turned into a boat dealership. The house on the left is a house that we're proposing to restore. And to the right, I don't know if you can go further to the right, Zach, or not.
Secret's out. I don't know the difference.
So it's right up against the road. I mean, cars back out onto the street. And as you know, they park boats there during the winter. It's an eyesore. So, we've been through this whole presentation before. I think I'd just like to show you kind of what we've refined it to, because there was questions about the exterior. Rich, you had mentioned, we want to make sure that if you say you're going to do this, we want to make sure it looks like we think it should look. Did you put up the new rendering that we? So working back and forth with, that's the wrong one. Yeah, we've done a lot of renderings. So working back and forth with Zach and Tom Comita, team. This is, kind of our concept of a restored mill house or warehouse or whatever. It has a little bit of a historic slant, but also we added some modern touches that wouldn't just grab. Pretty much in accordance with the ordinance. And this is what we would deed restrict the property to, this drawing. And this is really not a good, actually that picture looks a lot better than this picture. But that is what we would restrict the property to. And I'm working through the details of that with the gentleman that owns the site. So no matter what happens, if I get hit by a bus and he sells it to somebody else, that's what's got to be built. If it's apartments, if I sell it to somebody else, that's what's got to be built. If it's apartments, this was your council's idea, and I understand the concept. And then, could you show the site plan? Yeah, so this is just an overview showing the circulation on the roads. And this is still conceptual. We have to do a lot of engineering. We have to go through a conditional use hearing. We have to get PennDOT approval. There's as you know, there's 1,000 things we have to do. We're really just talking about the zoning right now. And there will be a parking garage. There will be, our entrances and exits will line up with the existing light and the existing entrance to the shopping center across the street. We've already talked to our engineers and our traffic consultants. And, you know, if you have any questions about that, I can answer, or I can just continue to the end and then.
Is the gray part of the building, that's the parking garage?
Yes.
Okay. You go back to the prior picture, the first one. The units, are there units all on top, under the A-frame, or that's just the roof part? Yeah, that level.
One of the things that we had originally talked about, and you guys, your consultants had also mentioned, was to have setbacks in the building. So we slid the fourth level back.
Right.
So that from the street, and we have a section we can show too. We slid it back so that really from the street, you don't see the whole full 4 stories, you just see 3 stories.
And that same facade that's on the front will loop around the sides also. So when you're driving up, unlike the GMH one up the street, the front is very nice brick. The sides is that white stuff.
We heard you didn't like that. I mean, it probably won't be quite as elaborate, but it will tie in. It just won't go to from a beautiful front to, you know, just siding.
Okay.
Well, we have the rendering.
As I see the 4 stories, there is a basement level as well?
Yes, there is, yeah. So, right, just the top of it. And, you know, basically, we talked about before, but the height of the building, even level, still be where it is, because we have so much cut in the back. 4 stories. I would pile dirt up front. Like in a house that's built on a hill, exposed basement in the back. But most, you know, feel that basement coincides with your ordinance about what a basement is. Feel the definition of a story, anything above the mean level of the property. So we think we comply with 4 stories. Definitely comply with the 50-foot limit. We're going to have a berm in the front. If we don't do that, you know, the site is very, very, very difficult to engineer and build on. I don't think it would ever be suitable for a shopping center. There's just not enough mass in economic terms to afford to cut out that hill and be retaining walls. This is the only use that I can see that I could ever use for this property. We really do need to have the bottom units to make the thing feasible. I went over it with my partners, and they're pretty insistent that you know, we need to have, you know, just very close to 240 units.
I just want to clarify, one of the things we had talked about, you know, previous meetings, and generally the case with buildings like this, is height. We knew that given the challenges of this site, the topography, the change in elevation front to rear, that it might not fit neatly into how our definition of height is calculated. Sort of short circuits it a little bit because there is such a rise in the back, which could make the front facade taller than 50 feet truly from the floor to the ceiling, but still average out to 50 feet. So just based on previous feedback we had gotten, we added to the existing text of the ordinance that a building would be limited to 4 stories. As Mr. Bentley indicated, it seems like this would still comply with our ordinance with the 4-story limitation. I think we'd want to examine that more during the conditional use, and once we have the final grade and a little more detail on the engineering and architecture. But I just want to make sure the board is aware of that, in that the definition doesn't handle this type of situation quite as neatly. If the board is fully supportive of this concept and this sort of partially exposed basement, I think we could add some clarifying language in the draft ordinance that would allow it. But part of the main reason, aside from that and the setback, it's a relatively small setback. The GMH building is more like 60, this is more like 30, so it's going to be a little closer to the road. The step back of the upper levels really help with the massing of that, but it's a lot of moving pieces to the architecture, and we just wanted to make sure the board is aware of that and comfortable.
But there'll still be sufficient right-of-way for a future 5-lane Lancaster Avenue.
Yeah.
Middle, that's
we
still.
We have an exhibit to go over.
Give me just one moment.
In this exhibit, what's the distance between the road and the building? Do you know?
What's recommended in your ordinance is 30 feet.
30 feet.
If you're in a unit on the rear of the building, back against the railroad track side, if you're on the top floor, how is that level relative to the tracks? I mean, it doesn't look straight down. It's probably going to look fairly even with the height difference between.
Rich, I haven't measured that. I haven't done a section for that view, but
okay.
If
Gut feel?
If you want, we can. I think the top floor of the apartment building will be higher than the railroad track, but it might not be.
Can't be much higher with the difference in elevation
Probably
from
not.
the road to the maybe 1 story kind of difference. Okay.
We have a section if you'd like to see the section.
So Tom, I'm not sure if this, the railroad aspect of this, if that got the same level of, I'll say, attention or detail, but it does show that it's a little higher. Yeah. It sort of stops at the railroad right away, so it doesn't continue on to show the tracks. So. Tom, could you grab the microphone, please? Sorry.
Okay. If we didn't have the basement, the grade would just come up like this, because we can't cut too much further down than this in the back. So that was my point that I was trying to make before. And we think having a lower level, we'll be able to open that up at the entrance, which is on the eastern side of the building, and have some nice 2-story elements there that look down to the pool. And, you know.
And then how many units would end up being in the basement?
About 40.
40, that many? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess the lower rents will get that, the students.
Actually, I think they're really great units because they have a berm in front of them that they don't get exposed to Route 30. Yeah.
Is there projected rental costs this time? Has that changed?
Well, it's changing all the time. It changes every week in the apartment world. They have a little computer program that tells them how many 1-bedrooms, 2-bedrooms, and 3-bedrooms are available, and prices change weekly. But you know, we hope to have a studio for $1,500 a month, and then maybe a 1-bedroom for like $1,700, $1,800 a month, 2-bedroom, $2,200. You know, I don't know. It's, you know, whatever we have to have the price to get people to move in. You know,
Well,
I mean, there's still a demand for apartments in the Philadelphia suburban area. Every apartment building is 97% leased right now.
Really? Still?
Really? Yeah.
That's why there's 4 or 5 people behind you. Not tonight, but That's right.
Yeah, well, the yards had tremendous success there. That was a good move, I think.
There's been speculation as far as what would become of this property if the apartments weren't approved. Can you comment on that?
Well, we had two car dealers that approached us to buy the property. And I don't know what else. I think that's the most obvious choice. I mean, it was an existing car dealership, so it's a pretty easy flip to have it be another car dealership. I think that would be the most logical use.
We've been asked many times for units on Route 30 and other places in East Whiteland. There's some land that's already zoned for it. We do want to clean up Route 30. I think would fit in with cleaning up Route 30. This one. I don't know if there are others that would follow behind it just yet, or maybe ever, I don't know. But if you're going to have I'd rather have something like this than up the street, the yards, even though that's very successful. And this will have the usual amenities that every apartment building has: the weight room, the meditation room. Oh my God.
Yoga.
The golf.
Swimming pool.
You're going to have a golf simulator.
Dog wash.
Golf simulator.
Bike repair.
Yeah. Golf simulator too?
Yeah.
Really? Jeez.
Yeah. And and then we have these what are they, the big storage. I mean, everybody gets everything from Amazon right now, so, and all the different shipping, so we have to build a special room for all the boxes. What happened in our old apartment buildings is there were so many deliveries that and they just ended up being in the sales offices, and that just basically pushed everybody. There was no room for the people. So, you have to build a whole room for all the deliveries, and typically you give the UPS and the FedEx guy and the Amazon guy keys, and they can just come in from the outside and drop it off. So they would have a little spot where they can come in and, do a quick unload through a side door.
There wouldn't be parking along the street here. Anybody coming to this property would pull alongside or around back or...
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's what I think.
A couple thoughts on my side. After having been working on the RAISE grant on the Route 30 corridor, we spend a lot of time in looking at and reviewing the Route 30 corridor master plan, which was vented pretty heavy back in 2018. Where we've got 3 different areas for apartments and walkability, widening the roads. So this fits one of those molds. Also, informally, I have actually asked 49 people about which would you prefer, car dealership or apartment complex at this site. And all but 2 have said apartments, which was quite honestly surprising to me that it was that much. Again, that's totally informal, but the other thing is I feel like, where do you typically see just one car dealership? They multiply, they grow. You don't just have one. You look at Limerick and what's going on there. You look at down 202.
And what's wrong with that?
Those are the corridors for those dealerships. That's what they're there for.
Well, my vision is
Zoning.
I'm not quite sure I have the vision of Route 30 being the car dealership row number 2. And so, we struggle with what we want this corridor to kind of look like. But I think there's also another positive aspect of it. This is basically situated in the middle of the corridor. It's also situated in a location where eventually there will be walkability from this site up the hill past the apartments to the Chester Valley Connection Trail that would occur. There's walkability to some of the restaurants and some of the activities along there. It's not perfect as far as what a node that we've talked about in the past, but I think it has I guess I'm comfortable with something along like this on this particular site.
God, it's going to be a beautiful building. I mean, the front on this building is far more money than I want to spend. You know, it's pretty much going to be all brick. We have peaked roofs. I would like to ask anybody to go find an apartment building that has that kind of detail on the roof with patios, and we have a whole deck on the fourth floor where people can, you know, congregate and have parties or whatever. So I mean, we've put a lot of thought into it, and I just think it's going to be a beautiful building. I think it's going to have a touch of history, and it's going to be kind of like it was modernized a little bit, and I just think it's a good look.
The other thing I see this is that the business community will benefit from this from an economic standpoint with some modest growth along Route 30. Modest growth.
We talked to, I know the family that owns the shopping center across the street. They were very excited about us having apartments here. Scott, could you pull up the traffic, the Route 30? Zach, I'm sorry.
You walked right into an inside joke, Tom. Tim. Tom.
Sorry.
This is it's okay.
But that's not what we called them all day today.
No, Scott works for me. There's a Scott that works for me.
He's got a Scott too, right? That's right.
A different Scott, right?
A different Scott.
Right, different Scott.
Yeah, different.
Thank you.
Scott Emerson.
What's his last name?
Emerson.
Yeah, Scott Emerson works for you, right.
So this is everything that is in your corridor plan. We got the 5-foot sidewalk, we got the bike path, we got the extra lane. So there's 2 travel lanes. There can be 2 travel lanes on the other side, depending on what gets done over there. And then there's a turning lane in the middle. So it's pretty much exactly what you guys had in your corridor plan. And the great news is I'm going to pay for it, you're not.
I know it's a little hard to see on this, but I think to Tom's point about the architecture and things like that, not only is he setting this new right-of-way line with the improvements and the travel lanes, you can see just if there was any concern over like the setback, this would be the new building line, which is further back than even, I'll say, the further back portion of the existing building. The existing building hangs over what would be the future sidewalk. So it will be further back than the existing. It'll be more or less consistent with the surrounding buildings as well.
And have you given, Tom, have you given any more thought about what reuse of the historic building there?
You know, we're going to fix it up. I mean, I told you I would. I'm going to. I think it's be great to have some kind of a, not formally a WeWork, but some kind of a working environment there where people could actually, you know, come from anywhere, just have a little office. I mean, there's such a big movement with people being in transition with working at home. You know, not the greatest things for people that own offices, like, but, you know, I think there's a big demand. People want to work at home, but they also need to get out of the house every now and then and have a conference room or have a copier or whatever. So I haven't really explored that, but that's That's kind of my favorite option right now. I think there's a need for it.
Are you okay with having condition of saving that building put in any plans?
Yes, yes. I don't know if I mentioned this before. The outside of the building looks pretty bad. But, you know, I made a thorough inspection of the inside of the building, and it's sound. I mean, there's no rot. I went down in the basement, checked the beams, floors are solid. There's a couple rooms on the back that were added on that, you know, were kind of like not done as well as the original building. They probably should be torn off. But, you know, the building is, you know, going to cost a few $100,000 to fix up. It will be a nice place. There it is. What?
Any comments from the audience? Tim?
Just since I'm here anyway, Tim Caban, 1050 West King Road. For many years, that historic building has been left to sit, and an alleged past supervisor told the guy to let it go and it would be fine. And since then, that's what happened. And to me, I don't hate it. And I think it's great that you're saving the building, and I thought that the characterization you just made of what it takes to do the historic building wasn't hugely slanted and, you know, a total nonsense. It was an honest assessment. So I'd say based on that, given other options, you know, I don't hate it. I appreciate the buildings being saved, and so that's what I would say.
I just want to add one thing to that. Tom had mentioned that they have agreed to file a restrictive covenant against it, you know, referencing the architecture. One of the points in that covenant as well is to save the building. So a lot of that will be discussed and determined in more detail during the conditional use process, but Tom has been very flexible about that aspect of it.
Tom, just so you understand, Tim was a former historical chairman for many years here in the township, so he's an authority really on historical structures and so forth here.
Yeah, we found, we did some research and we found a woman that's been blogging about the building for what, 15 years? 10, 15 years, talking about how it's just in disrepair and it should be fixed up. I was like, wow, really been looking at that building for a long time. But you know, I don't think it's going to be impossible to fix up. It's just part of doing business, and you know, I said I'd fix it up, and I'll fix it up.
Well, is there a draft ordinance been prepared for our review? Okay, all right. For our review yet, or?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Has there been a draft of an ordinance amendment?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can walk through that quickly if you'd like, otherwise I can just give you, there's multiple changes to the ordinance, and it's mostly things like more specificity in the architectural requirements. There's a new reference to accommodating the concept plan from the Route 30 study, so basically just some things that I think were assumed and were always going to happen anyway, but they're now codified.
Okay. And that's been reviewed by us yet, or now the process will really start, would really start?
Yeah, so we've prepared a draft. I think we might want to make just a slight tweak. If the board is supportive of I'll say the architectural concept, we could make a tweak to just make that a little clearer, headed into the conditional use process. But we would send this off to the county and local planning commissions for formal review, with an eye towards the June board meeting for a hearing. So if there's anything you want to discuss with respect to the ordinance, or if that timeline is not what you envision?
That would just be that
right? So we prepared a draft. It's in a position that it could be, with that minor tweak we just talked about, could be sent for the formal review and be in a position to vote on in June if you're comfortable with that. If you're not comfortable with that, we can lay out, work on a different timeline, but
Vote on in June for what? For approval or for advertising?
it can be either.
Zach is asking you tonight to vote to advertise it, because we do have enough time. It's June 14th and it's May 10th, so he's got 30 days to send it to both planning commissions. So if you wanted to have the actual public hearing in June, you would authorize the advertising today.
I haven't looked at it. Okay. So we should look at it. Okay.
June's too soon.
Both your legal counsel and mine has both had to go back and forth a couple times.
And Mr. Comita, who's in the audience also.
I mean, I would say, yes, it's been looked over. If the board, an authorization to advertise in June, I don't think there is 30 days in order to vote in July, so it does sort of create a knock-on effect, but
What is the date for the meeting for June and July?
June 14th and July 12th, so I don't believe there's quite 30 days in there.
So we would ask you to motion to authorize advertising for a July hearing today, so that we don't have to redo this again, because June, we wouldn't have enough time.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Just from a procedural standpoint, I guess if we were to,
And if whatever exists now, we okay for advertising, if there's tweaks between now and July, you don't have to re-advertise?
Well, if Zach is going to make tweaks, we've got time, if we're having a July hearing, to make sure what we advertise is the correct one. So I wouldn't advertise it like in the next week or so, I'd advertise it a little later, to make sure everyone's on the same page.
yeah, so in order to meet a July hearing date, it would have to be sent to the planning commission. That's the 30-day, that's the big lead item. It'd have to be sent around on June 12th. So there's not really another official board meeting date mixed in there. If there are changes, if the,
My only comment is I'm against the proposal. I would like to keep it zoned commercial. That's where I stood before, and that's where I still stand now.
So is my understanding the board's going to advertise or authorize advertisement for a July hearing, whenever that advertisement goes in. But in the meantime, you're going to authorize sending it to the county and the Township Planning Commission so that we can get the process started. And that's really what we want to do. I mean, we need to get feedback on this. Official feedback, start the process. We've informally been before the Planning Commission back in February. They were fine. We've been informally in front of you guys a couple of times. We need to now start putting our suit on and getting this thing in the right process.
I'll say preferably we wouldn't send it to the planning commissions and then send it again if there's tweaks. I'm hopeful that there wouldn't be tweaks, changes to the ordinance that's already been drafted, but I understand if you haven't reviewed it with that in mind and we're more focused on the proposal itself, I get that. So we wouldn't have another, if we were to move forward with a July hearing, there's time to circulate the draft. You could look at it, but we couldn't really make a formal vote. I mean, you could certainly let me know if you have concerns. We could circulate another draft, but that kind of gets out of the whole public meeting discussion sort of public format, which is not really ideal. So I think ideally we'd have like sort of a looks good, proceed with sort of the formal process. Does that make sense?
That has gone back and forth between the sides.
Oh, there it is, okay. Yeah. The draft that's gone back and forth already, have you reviewed it, Tom? You've seen the latest, the greatest?
Yes.
Okay.
I had suggested about it to somebody.
Oh, shit.
Hi, Tom Cometa, planning consultant. Zach and Brittany, Bernadette, John, and I have had about 6 Zoom meetings over the last 3 or 4 or 5 months, each of which to refine and make better the proposed ordinance amendment. And we offered about a dozen suggestions on how to refine the ordinance. And at this point are satisfied that it achieves the preferred outcome that the staff had with all the considerations that were discussed this evening. So it looks good to us. And I bought my first Saab here, and at each meeting I said it'll be a wonderful day when that eyesore can go away, because I think this proposal, each of them, the yards at Malvern, this one, and as Richard said, you know, what might follow, is a tremendous upgrade in the streetscape and the appearance of the Route 30 corridor. So I can't wait to see if Tom Bentley can create the drawings that he's produced. And I will say that his architect, we worked for, on behalf of the township, we worked closely with Lassard when GMH did the yards at Malvern. Very cooperative, many Microsoft team meetings, during which time they would show different ideas and options on building materials, and they're one of the best for our apartment designs. So we have a good team. Yeah. You're welcome.
Okay, then I'll go ahead and make a motion to authorize the advertisement of the zoning for the property having an address at
310 Lancaster Avenue.
310 Lancaster Avenue.
I second that. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Oh, wait.
Nay.
Passes 2-1.
Thank you.
Zach, are you still up on, no. John,
My turn, thank you.
I'm sorry, yeah, John.
We only have one new application coming in this month for DeMarco, is the DeMarco Real Estate Holding Company, is a certain property at 415 3-Ton Road. It's presently owned by an Antoinette Rossi. The application is for a special exception to Article 7, Section 200-41 of the zoning ordinance for the proposed use of staging, storing, and servicing rental equipment as being the same general character as other uses permitted in the industrial zoning district. The applicant has come this evening to give you a rundown of what they perceive to how they're going to use the property. So, take it away.
Good evening, members of the board. Bill Dion. I'm here on behalf of DeMarco Real Estate, who is the applicant for the zoning application just mentioned. The property, if you're familiar with it, it's at 415 3-Ton Road. Currently, the property is My client has it under, and then Steve DeMarco is with me this evening if you have any questions for him. He has the property under lease with an option to purchase. He currently owns the site right next door where he's building some flex space, so it's under construction today. The site itself has a warehouse building on it, a single warehouse building of about 10,400 square feet. It has a multitude of tenants in it. The DeMarco Real Estate's intention is to relocate those tenants or vacate those tenants and lease the entire building out to tenants called National Tank and Equipment. It's based out of Austin, Texas. They do rental equipment, not to individual homeowners, but contractors, so larger equipment, pumps, scaffolding material, shoring material, barricades for traffic, tanks, so they'll do any kind of rentals more to contractors throughout the country. So that's our intention. We originally saw it more of a warehouse concept, which is permitted in the industrial zoning district. In conversation with your zoning officer, felt that it was more appropriate that we apply for a special exception as the kind of, what I call the catch-all, where it's a use or similar use to the district. So we did that. As far as the criteria, it's fairly straightforward. I think it's pretty clear that we won't create any additional traffic, we won't create any additional noise. I think in the end it will be an enhancement to what's there today. We are aware that the current our landlord, but soon to be seller, has some open issues with the township that we are trying to facilitate the closing out of those. We're trying to be the impetus to that, but right now we are looking to get the special exception so that we can tell our tenant that they are permitted and we can start moving forward in that front. So that's it in a nutshell. I don't know if there's individual questions or...
Could you enlighten me on what those open issues are?
So there was some grading done in the rear of the property by the current owner, and that grading went beyond the property boundary. And he did not submit, and I'll confess I don't know exactly, but I think he failed to submit an ENS plan. So that plan, it's my understanding, has been submitted. We're not responsible for it, but we're trying to prod it. So it's been submitted. I think there's been some comments they want some additional information on the plan. So that is being done, and we are looking to hopefully have that permit issued in the not too distant future. We were advised, I think today, that PICO was a little concerned with what happened in the rear there, so we reached out to PICO ourselves. And if need be, we'll facilitate PICO coming to adjust any of the poles that are back there and the grading that was done around them. But and John, you could probably, I don't know if that's a good summary or we've kind of walked into it.
Right, basically that's about it. We haven't received a formal application yet on the ENS permit. They brought some deficient plans that need a lot more information. I spoke to Mr. DeMarco multiple times today, actually for the last 2 weeks, whatever, and he's been prodding the sellers because a lot of the work that has to be done and needs to be done is also contingent on him purchasing the property and him assuming a lot of liabilities with any unanswered questions that he would have, as being taking over the property.
It seems like there's a lot of open-ended things that lie, some very big open-ended things that lie ahead of what we're trying to decide whether we're for or against tonight.
Correct. He's been giving out he's been given a list of what is deficient on the property. And the present owners of the property haven't been the most cooperative with the municipality at this time in trying to get these completed. Mr. DeMarco is trying to come to an end to try to get those done. I believe it's his intention of trying to get this use in, so as the work's going on and the questions and the issues are being addressed, whether it's fencing, screening, whatever his proposed tenant's going to need for that property, it all gets addressed at that time.
The one thing I would just clarify if I can, so our agreement of sale, we have a lot of money posted. Until this item is resolved, we don't release that money. So the kind of things go hand in hand because ultimately without the tenant, the deal doesn't happen. The zoning relief is needed for the tenant. So we would like the zoning relief to move forward so that we can facilitate it, but ultimately, we will not close on it until the work is done and it's satisfied to the township. That condition, we have no problem being part of any zoning that the township obtains and issues an E&S permit, but my fear would be that if the zoning doesn't move forward, this tenant looks to find another location, then we are no longer involved in the deal, and then the property stays in its current condition. So it's a lot of balls we're trying to move forward at the same time. But that condition would be completely acceptable to us because it's a condition we have in our agreement of sale.
That condition seems eminent, yes.
Pretty typical. What's the restrictions? So you're going for a use, special exception use. What's the outdoor storage restrictions in this district? Any idea? Will they?
Yeah, there's actually a section of the code, 293.2, which requires them to put screening up against certain opposing uses, screening from public right-of-ways. Most of this stuff's going to be in the back. So there are regulations that we have in our code that they would have to comply with.
And the screening against opposing uses, I mean, they back up to the railroad tracks, but on the other side of the railroad tracks, it's very possible that someday there'll be, well, that's further down the road. The Bentley is a little further up, it'll be a residential use, but that's a good half mile down, so that's okay.
Yeah, this lot sits higher than the lots that would be on the other side of the railroad tracks. It's uphill from them.
This is higher than the?
Yes.
But the rail is higher than the elevation of this land now, the property.
No,
this is
the rail's underneath the property.
Rail's underneath it?
Yes.
Is this where?
Probably 10, 15 feet.
Is this where the big drainage problem was or is?
It is. It's actually on the opposite side of the cul-de-sac. So it's coming from the south to the north. It's draining.
So right now the water where there is a problem draining from?
Right on that screen.
Oh, okay.
Across the cul-de-sac and then onto this property.
But then it doesn't reach property going for the special exception, or does it?
No, it's picked up at the cul-de-sac. It's taken as a stormwater facility behind the building with the green roof there.
Right, that's what I thought, okay. So it's, okay. It doesn't currently create a problem for this building?
No.
Okay, all right, okay.
John, can I ask you, who owns the property just east?
The surrounding properties to the east would be Buckeye Pipeline. To the north would be, of course, Norfolk Southern. To the west is the Doggy Daycare Center. And then to the other side of the cul-de-sac to him is DeMarco owns that property there.
So all that wooded area to the right is Buckeye?
Yes.
Was there permission granted to clear cut in the back of the property?
No, that's been a civil matter that's been going on for a long time between Buckeye, the owner, and the Norfolk Southern. To the Norfolk Southern side, it looks like from old pictures, looks mostly like scrub brush that you normally find on the other areas, but there were some mature trees and stuff that are on the Buckeye property, and they've been in civil. They've served him eviction notices over the years. We found some record of.
Well, Wild West property there, isn't it? Or ownership?
Oh, we're hoping to change that, most certainly. So what we've done is, we've had the property survey, we set corner pins, so when we take ownership, it will be consistent with Mr. DeMarco's handlings in the township and other projects with what he's doing right across the street. So we think it will be an improvement, operations and physically, for the property.
Where will the storage of the rental equipment take place?
Exactly.
So they can, some of it's actual trucks, vehicles of that nature, or it's pull behind, so that could be out in the parking lot itself.
But I'm sorry, how can we tell from what was submitted where the parking lot is?
Well, the parking lot is what you can't really see is on the actual, what we submitted was a survey, so it does show the curb line in the rear. The aerial picture that you're looking at now is kind of hard to see it, but
right,
there is a curb line physically in the rear, and that would be the limits of the parking lot. The graded area, the dirt area is clearly not.
Right, but is that shown on the plan?
The dirt area?
No, is the curb line delineated on the plan?
Should Chesko use that?
It should be.
The survey plan, I can't tell, and I'm normally pretty good at picking it up, but I can't
If it isn't,
tell.
we can make sure it is, because we just did an Alta survey on the property.
And so will it just be vehicles stored back there?
It will be vehicles, but you have to realize too, they'll have like trailers, so sometimes they'll haul the trailers, so it will be, they'll drop it, pick it up. So the people that will be there will be some delivery people, so there will be vehicles, but there will be, I don't know what the best way to describe it, but you could put it on the hitch and then pull it out. There could be those types of trailers in the rear. There's pumps, they do a lot of pumps, a lot of commercial pumps. They're all pulled by trailers. So they will be outside. They will be in the rear, as in also in the building itself.
Right, and so the application says something about staging. Is that what you mean by staging?
It would be, because ultimately some of the equipment will get dropped off. It will come into the building to be maintained, cleaned for the next rental. Then it might be brought back out into the parking lot until someone picks it. We deliver it ourselves. Someone can come pick it up, but most of it's delivered. So that's why I called it staging, because it would be kind of rotated around the parking lot as it's coming in, dropped, brought in, cleaned up, brought back out, and brought for another delivery.
Okay, so the staging and storing will only take place in the parking lot, which is impossible to see on the aerial. In the parking lot to we'll say the rear of the building.
Correct. Just to be clear, there's some parking, any drops will happen behind, but there's some of the vehicles that they rent, they could park them. There's probably 8 to 10 spaces out front, but I would say any drops will be in the back, and it will ultimately, nothing will happen beyond the curb line. We're not going to store anything beyond the curb line. Ours will all be on the existing macadam.
Right, okay. And so Mr. Orlo asked a question about the ordinance that is in place regarding storage in the industrial district and fencing, I believe, and buffering, and will those requirements be met?
They will. I will tell you, I know the section, and I have it in front of me, and it's 200-93.2. It is a little unclear. It says, all outdoor storage where permitted shall be enclosed by a fence adequate to conceal the facilities from adjacent properties or screened from view by an effective screen. So exactly what can be seen where, I mean, if it's landscaping you want, fencing you want, we're open to whatever it is. I just don't think the whole facility should be fenced in, because we've got existing woodlands to the right, but if there was location of particular interest that thought should be screened, whether it's a fence or landscaping, we're completely open to whatever makes sense. I mean, Mr. DeMarco, like I said, he owns the property next door. He intends to own this for many years to come. This lease is, could be 15 to 20 years. So this is a significant investment for him, and he wants it to be an asset for himself and the township.
No, I understand, and I'm sure I know Steve, and I'm sure he'll clean it up and make it an improvement over what's there. It's hard to evaluate what was submitted to us. The application and the plan were there weren't many details. There wasn't much information, and I'm asking a lot of these questions because I generally understand what you're doing, but it's hard to evaluate what you're doing. And I'm sure, again, it'll be an improvement, but we want to make sure of that. And, here's a property owner that went above and beyond what he was permitted to do. In fact, he wasn't even on his own property, and we want to make sure that doesn't happen again.
And I guess, I apologize that level of detail wasn't there. I guess what our thought process, we do not plan any expansions or additions to the building, so the current condition of the site is what we intend to lease and operate on. Obviously, that aerial, again, with the grading done in the rear makes it look a lot larger, but we will not be parking beyond the curb line.
Will there be additional lighting added for security purposes?
We really haven't considered it. I mean, I guess if the tenant's in there and feels that it's necessary, but there's been no discussion or desire for it to this point.
Okay, thank you.
Are we able to determine the distance from the back of that property to the closest residential or potential residential area?
I wouldn't be able to do that. I don't know if you can do that on what you have pulled up. The question is if we could identify the closest residential property or could be residential property.
This would improve upon the status quo.
Well, the status quo is this guy's occupying 3 different properties. 2 different properties don't belong to him. And all of your activity will be within the title lines.
Absolutely.
Everything will be pulled back.
Well, what we're going to do is just, we're going to...
It's industrial now.
And...
it is.
Outside the lines. I mean, is the current owner going to improve these border crossings before you move in, and then you're going to have a clean site to lease? Is that
what you mean with the water crossings?
With the border, the property line crossings, excuse me.
He has, we will not do it until he's resolved those issues, but if you were out there 6 weeks ago and you're out there tonight, which I was, there has been a dramatic improvement in the property as far as material coming off of it, being removed from the site. So I think the seller understands in order to facilitate this transaction, he has got to get a number of things in order. And he has done, and I don't know, John, if you've been out there lately, but I would say, I'll say significant progress. I mean, it's been a lot of progress. There's still things to do. And look, Mr. DeMarco's building right next door, so he has helped facilitate some of the things coming off the site because we have equipment there. So we're motivated to assist him in getting that done, and he does seem to be focused on it now.
Okay. Maybe we'll get some of the DeMarco equipment off the cul-de-sac too, even.
Yes.
That'd be great.
Yep.
Residential, yeah.
If that's what we were talking about. It's a 400 plus, closer to 500 before the actual apartments would start to be higher up than the existing.
Okay. We've been having a complaint that is just going on Route 30 regarding residential property that butts up against a commercial property, that the commercial property at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, they're backing trucks up and you're hearing the backup beepers and you're waking up families. What's that? Yeah. Before our time. But you're saying that distance to cross the track is 450 feet.
Scott, in that regard, I was wondering, are these going to be like heavy trucks at all? Will there be any like tractor trailers pulling in and out of there from, say, 352? And I was going to ask, and also as well as the time of the day, and whether they're going to be hauling like Jersey barriers, or are they like heavy? Are they going to have things loading and unloading, or?
They will. I mean, are all of them 18-wheelers? No. I mean, but that is, depending on what they're loading or unloading, it could be an 18-wheeler. It might be a little hard to get in and out of the site, but I can't say no, sitting here today, that would not happen.
Okay, so that they know that, I mean, obviously you know that the entrance on 352 is kind of...
It's tight.
It's tight.
Yes.
So pretty much you can only get there from the north.
Right, right.
Okay.
I don't have any other questions other than, will you be at the zoning hearing board to make sure that the board hears all of the questions and concerns that we've raised?
Correct. I have a whole set of conditions that me and staff have put together that, we concerned that they addressed this evening, and we'll make sure that each of those bullet points are addressed. Let the board know and make sure we bring it up during the course of the meeting.
That'd be great to see prior. Thank you.
I'd be happy to share that.
May I request the same, John? I know you've shared it with us before, but if you can share it with us, that way when we walk in the meeting, we'll know that we're all on the same page. Thank you.
Okay, I guess we don't have to, we got a resolution there. Send John with questions, right? Similar to,
I wouldn't send solicitor to oppose this. This is an industrial zone. It's up against the railroad tracks. It's up against the pipeline, so it's not inappropriate for this use. No, it just has to be, just has to stay on the property.
You would think that would just be understood. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
thanks.
On code enforcement updates, we have the Pioneer gas station as of Friday, May 5th. We're still awaiting delivery of their sensors. The Code Enforcement Department has received an uptick in high grass and trash complaints. Multiple warnings have been generated and contacts made with affected parties throughout the township. And finally, started an unpermitted sign education program where I've been visiting a couple businesses where we've had ongoing issues with non-permitted signs, distributing some information about what signs are permitted and our permitting process that's required by the township.
That sounds great to clean up the township. Sounds very good.
With primaries coming up, I haven't seen too many political signs, but after the primary on the 16th, what, they have 5 days to remove those signs? So everybody out there, 5 days, pull those signs, please.
And also, Scott, if I could, on those signs, this past week I actually had to take down 2 political signs, and I moved them to an adjacent area where they're literally blocking crossing signals for signage for the trail, where they literally put them on the medial strip, put them up against the thing, and where it said pedestrian crossing or whatever the sign says. I took a picture of it and moved it off to the side of the road, so I didn't destroy it or remove it. But I did remove it from where it was causing a sight hazard.
Thanks. Okay. Donna, nobody's on there asking questions for anything?
There's going to be questions for public comment over there.
You've got a question?
Just for public comment.
Oh, okay. Yep, go ahead. We're there. Public comment coming up.
Hi, my name is Kedar Gokhale at 17 Accord Drive in the reserve at Great Valley. This is regarding a question that we had brought up last week about the time restriction on Flat Road for school buses coming in. I know Zach did respond to us, but we just wanted to know what the resolution would be and what the process is for that to allow the school buses to come on Flat Road in the mornings.
Zach, I think you got a little bit of an update.
Sure. Yeah, so staff did some research regarding the question of whether buses can be exempt from, I'll say, turn and entrance restrictions. There does appear to be such a sign in the PennDOT publication, so it may be that such a sign could be applied out here. I think what we would like to do is take the facts of like possible signage, what the intent of the existing signage was, what the nature of that road is, and evaluate that all sort of in concert to make sure that this is actually a viable option, or perhaps not, that we can consider the bus exemption, I'll say, from those restrictions. One point of clarification just on process, I would say we should meet internally amongst staff to make sure that if we were to move forward with something like that, it would be appropriate and that everyone's comfortable with it. There is a lot of pedestrian activity on that road, people running, biking, sometimes several astride in the cartway. Now, I know that's not really what you're supposed to do, but it is an existing factor we need to consider. So all that to say, if we were to determine that it is appropriate, we would likely need to update our traffic control device ordinance, which we could likely do at the June meeting. So if we can get resolution on, maybe make sure everyone's comfortable with something like that, we could tee this up for a June ordinance amendment.
Sure.
Definitely want to make sure that the police are, comfortable with something like that, and we can look at it from like, I'll say, a traffic planning standpoint.
Yeah, and I spoke with Zach and I guess Catherine to some degree on this, and I do agree that if we can get this underway, it would be a solution to the issue. And what we would probably do is what we do whenever we do a major change like that in a road pattern, is put up signboards and so forth a couple of weeks in advance. So right. I think if we were going to do it, since there's no school over the summer, we would just do it when they go up originally, and then again at the beginning of the school year, to make sure that everyone's aware of the changes.
Right. Okay. What elementary school does your neighborhood go to?
Blanking out on the name.
There's one of two, KDM or Charlestown?
Charlestown.
Okay.
Yeah, not KDM.
So in the mornings, the bus can come in off of 29, right? It's the other way that there's a restriction. In the afternoons is when you have an issue.
So I don't know why they can't come from there.
But that's the restriction is from 4 to 6:30.
No, so they were coming in from Sidley in the morning, and they were coming in till March when the signs were still up. Right. I don't know what changed, but they just suddenly stopped.
It's odd that they would come in from Sidley. Charlestown is off at 29, and I think all Spring Mill still goes to KDM, right? Nobody in Spring Mill goes to Charlestown anymore.
And
it's been years, but whatever, they're the bus people.
Yeah, and I could be wrong about my kids are in high school or college, so I don't know. I'm just representing the
Well, maybe that's the
homeowners.
problem, because high school's the other way.
Yeah,
okay.
so
I understand. All right. I thought everybody had little kids.
Yeah. Most of them are actually. My kids they drive themselves. Yeah.
That's the problem. All right.
And just a little bit of a follow-up on similar vein. So we just discussed about the dedication of the internal community roads. So the bus or the school district also said they could potentially drive through the community. So they could come on the other side and drive through the community, but they said they couldn't do it till the roads were dedicated. So based on the resolution today, can they now drive through the community, or that's something once it's signed, they'll have to?
Yeah, once I would say that dedication is finalized, once the deeds have been cleaned up, we can send them notification that has taken place. If that factors into how they route their buses, that'll be their call, but we can let them know what the decision was made at the township level. Often the school doesn't want to enter private roads.
School buses don't go on non-dedicated roads?
That's what they told us when we asked them, why aren't you coming through this road? They said, we can't because it's not a township.
You say so. I've never heard that in 30-some years being here, but whatever. Okay.
Yeah, that is generally their policy. I think there's some exceptions where they've gotten easements and agreements in place, but that is generally their yeah, their base position for sure, yep.
All right, thank you very much.
And one thing, I just want to just remind you, you're head of this association,
Yes.
right? That with the cemetery, historic cemetery on
Yes.
Flat Road, that is the homeowners association for mowing.
Yeah.
I know we had a period of time where there was some confusion about who was responsible for that.
The mowing of the.
About the mowing, yeah.
I believe it, yeah, and I think
Yeah.
it is our responsibility.
So I'm just mentioning that while you're here.
Okay, great, yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you for your time.
Tim?
Tim Caban, I wanted to come down tonight to mention, to make a comment on 164 Conestoga, which the only thing I watched without being continued was the February meeting with an interchange between Martin Lutz and Zach and the solicitor. And I watched that, and I saw an explanation that the zoning needs to be changed back to professional office. But I didn't see any reference to evidence of that, and other than a reference that it was made during omnibus zoning in 2007 or something was the last time, I think Zach said you thought it was done. So I just want to raise some concerns with you. One is that if zoning was done in 2007, I would think, and before I avalanche Donna with right-to-know requests, I figured I would just ask you guys, isn't there a zoning hearing board minute? Don't they have a court reporter and zoning hearing board? Don't we have minutes from 2007 where we can identify what the previous code was and when the decision was made? Is that something that we could get, that I could get as a public citizen, or that the community can get?
Yes. Are you asking what it was zoned prior to 2007? Is that what you're?
Well, yeah, so I'm asking, sure, what was it zoned prior to 2007?
It was, as I understand, it was zoned residential prior to 2007.
Okay, and then after 2007, what was it zoned?
OS, open space, which is the same designation we apply to many of our parks and township-owned land.
So that's helpful, because I've seen a bunch of emails in the community that say, no, before it was residential, it wasn't professional office.
Yeah, I can clarify that too. I don't mean to cut you off, Tim.
Okay.
I did previously state, based on a conversation with the property owner, that it had been previously zoned commercial. It was zoned, and I'd have to look back now, but previously the larger tract associated with that piece of land, the Knickerbocker tract on the other side of 202 kind of cut it off and created like these orphan pieces of land. That was zoned industrial. So that was a miscommunication on my part, and I do apologize.
Okay, fair enough, I accept that. So the owner of that land is a long-standing member, very respected. I have great respect for him. Nothing against all the contributions he's made to this township. But if you're going to be transacting between somebody who I would categorize as somebody as an insider, without regard to the legal definition, that's just my own personal characterization. It's important to do things in a transparent way and above board, because if you're negotiating a sale or a purchase from the township, and why is it being continued? Are you having discussions with the property owner?
I'll let Bernadette weigh in on that. I would say it's probably not something we want to get into here. We've gone through some due diligence. The thing has been made clear at previous meetings that the owner has offered to convey that to the township. But aside from that, I don't think it's appropriate to get into any details as we examine the existing conditions out there.
Okay, so I will, or would you like to comment, Ms. Solicitor?
I thought you were, one of the reasons for the delay is we're having a hard time contacting their attorney who's semi-retired.
Okay, fair enough. So then, I would assume that there are attempts or communications or attempts at communications between the owner and the township over this time period, right? Is any of that subject to Pennsylvania sunshine laws or right-to-know requests?
I'd have to review it.
So you don't know?
I don't know off the top of my head what, I'm not often copied on everything, so I'd have to see what was sent in.
Okay. I'm mentioning this, again, not because there's necessarily anything improper, but it's important that the appearance of propriety is upheld, especially for people who are very long-standing members of the community. And because I don't have to tell everybody, but the zoning, and I think you said, and I would expect he would make a covenant to not have another billboard. But when I hear that we're going to assume that there was a mistake made, most recently, that individual was the chairman of the zoning hearing board. And I don't know at 2007 what his position was, but I don't know what his position in 2007 was. I wouldn't be surprised if he was on the zoning hearing board, whether he was the chairman or not. But to say that a change was made to the property to open space by accident through omnibus zoning change, when the owner of the property is involved with the zoning hearing boards, it sounds a little silly to me. And so I'll leave it there, but the other thing I'm concerned about is, and I don't think it's a giant economic benefit, but any economic benefit that accrues to the owner of the property by virtue of the zoning change, whether before or after the negotiated sale, it doesn't happen, it does happen, we're talking about it, I don't know, but if there's an economic benefit there, I was just in the men's restroom, and there's a sign that says, remember, this is taxpayer funded, please be respectful, take care of it. And I would just ask that you consider and take care of our financial resources in this township and treat them as resources of all the members of the township when you're negotiating with a long-standing member who I would categorize as an insider and odd zoning changes based on assumptions. So I'll leave it there, but I guess, could I ask, how should I go about asking for the evidence of the last zoning change, which it would be zoning hearing board minutes or court reporter transcripts or supervisor minutes from that time, and what time? So I could put out 3 years of a requested done, or can you just tell me what the date was?
We can get you the date of that adoption hearing. It'd be the Board of Supervisors, not the zoning hearing board. The zoning hearing board does not adopt or make legislative actions like zoning ordinance amendments, but we can get you the minutes from the adoption hearing from the Board of Supervisors meeting in 2007.
All right, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Donna, anything on Zoom?
Yes, we have several things. First of all, the gentleman that was here about the school buses, he says it's Katie Markley School. That is, he's talking about. Yeah, he wrote in. Yeah, that's true. Anyway, we're going to let Carol Rapp go first. Go ahead, Carol.
Okay, thank you. I was just wondering about, there's a property up on Spring Road in the General Warren Village, 77 Spring Road, that has been abandoned for several years. It's starting to look pretty dilapidated, and I was just wondering if anybody knows, you guys with the codes enforcement or whatever, do you know what's going on with that property?
I'm looking around the room to see if anybody's raising their hand. We will look into that. I'm not sure who made the comment, but you can contact myself. Oh, Carol, sorry.
Carol, yes, Carol Rapp.
Sorry about that.
Sorry, yeah, 89 Village Place, sorry.
All good, I should have known. You can contact myself or John Matea, who's our zoning officer. Just follow up with either of us via email, and we can let you know what we know or don't know about that property.
Okay, thank you.
Kate Stauffer, go ahead and unmute yourself, please.
Hi, Kate Stauffer, 64 Farmstock Road. Just have a question. I think it was last township meeting that you had mentioned that you were looking to have a community meeting about the District 2 property.
Kate, this is Steve Brown. That's right, and we still are But we have to sit down with BSTI and our solicitor in this instance, Steve Hahn, and review BSTI's findings. However, it's still a work in progress. In fact, we authorized them to do some additional work. So until that work is done, we won't be ready for our community meeting.
Okay, and I just want you to know, I was in communication with the DEP, and they are looking to have a community meeting as well, so I was just hoping that you guys maybe could coordinate, not to do it together, because I think you're talking about two different things, but I just wanted to offer that information to you guys. To coordinate dates probably their meeting is about remediation of Bishop Tube and what their plan is that they want to offer the community.
Yeah, thank you, Kate. That's a good suggestion, and I'll make sure we coordinate so we aren't really, so we're not duplicating efforts and we don't stack the meetings, too close to one another.
And in that, I'm just thinking, just from a practical point of view, just because nothing can happen building-wise until the DEP does their remediation plan, that possibly their meeting happens first. So when their meeting happens, that we have that background of what the DEP is actually charged with doing.
Okay, yeah, I'll try to coordinate that with them. I have asked them when they intend to have their meeting, and they're kind of like us, they're just not sure. So I will try to coordinate that with them.
Great, I understand, we have enough to process, so thank you for that.
Hey, Kate, I'm not sure, you may have asked at the last meeting, I can't remember if it was you or Deb asked about connecting 54 Conestoga to public water. And
yeah.
Yeah, I just, BSTI just emailed me today and said that DEP anticipates the connection will be completed in June or July of this year.
Okay. Thank you for that. They're still sitting on toxic land, but thank you for that information.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Okay, the last question, I believe, is Martin Lutz. Please go ahead, Martin.
Good evening. I'd like to comment on two items that were presented under public comment. The first being 164 Conestoga Road. I participated in February 8th, 2023 Board of Supervisors meeting where the township represented that it made a mistake in 2007 when it zoned the subject property to open space, and that the township now wants to correct that mistake and rezone the subject property back to what it was prior to 2007. Also, at the February 8th meeting, the township represented that the zoning prior to 2007 was commercial. And as Zach has acknowledged this evening, that was a mistake, and that the property was in fact zoned commercial, or I'm sorry, it was a mistake, and in fact, that the property, subject property prior to 2007 was zoned residential 1 acre. So without getting into details, I know there's a public hearing coming up in this matter, I would say, I believe that if the board wants to properly correct its 2007 zoning mistake for the subject property, consistent with its stated intent, I believe the board should rezone the subject property back to what it was prior to 2007. That is, the subject property should be rezoned back to R1 residential 1 acre. There would be no need for a covenant. This would be consistent with the long-standing low-density residential zoning for the surrounding area. Now, if I have to say something, I'm happy to discuss it.
I think that makes sense. Before that property would be changed zoning-wise, there will be very careful review. Very. And there is I'd say no chance of their making any change that would jeopardize the ability with regard to billboards. It will not happen at that property.
Well, it's more than billboards, Rich. It's the whole area is residential. For the past half century, and I can take you back to the zoning maps, that area has been low-density residential. There'd be no covenant if you simply zoned it back to what it was, R1.
Very true. I don't disagree with you. Yeah, I don't disagree with you.
So that's the first point I would make. And I look forward to the public hearing where I'll present additional information. And as a quick aside, before I forget, there was a task force back in 2001, Comprehensive Plan Task Force, where we addressed the land use for the area. And again, without getting into all the details, remember that task force, Virginia McMichaels was the chairman at the time, Jack Finner, prior chairman, was involved. Various staff members, various residents were involved. It was not a mistake to zone it open space. That was our intent, to zone that land as open space at that time. So, well, for the sake of discussion, I'll accept that the township position was a mistake. But at the time, it was not a mistake, as I say. And I was a member of that task force. The second item, I want to go back. Your resident raised the issue of sewer buses. If I understood what he said, there's difficulty with the bus coming off Facility Road onto Flat Road in the morning. Again, I was part of the task force way back in the 80s where we came up with this one road system. Both in you can't go basically east in the morning or go west in the afternoon during certain hours. And all I can say is that there were all neighborhoods were involved in that process, and it was a long process where we came up with a solution. And so I recall Bob Resnick, who was chief of police at the time, stated in no uncertain terms that you can't make exceptions to that system. Now, it would seem to me the first order of business is for those who want to change it to go to the school district and determine if their problems can be addressed. I agree with you, Rich, that I would question why can't buses come off of Route 29 in the morning and go down Flat Road? Why do they come off Pacific? But before we go apart, what was built on all the neighborhoods, I think we have to do greater due diligence. And I would ask the township or the residents go first to the school district to see if they can resolve the problem before we start playing around with the road system. And I would say, Zach, if you want some further background on what took place back then and understand the background, I'd be happy to sit down with you and present the material.
I appreciate that offer.
Do you agree that the first order of business we check with the school district?
I believe they've been in contact with the school district. Chief Yeager and I met with the school district, so I think there's a lot of moving pieces to this, sort of to your point. I don't know that the township should be determining school district bus routing, but we do have a role within that with respect to travel restrictions. So that's what we'll be talking about internally, and we'll provide an update hopefully next month on sort of where we fall on that discussion.
Okay. No other questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on from public comments. I will read the consent agenda, and as usual, pause me if you have any questions pertaining to this. Approve the meeting minutes from April 12th, 2023. Ratify the payments of bills in the amount of $1,224,972.05. Accept the treasurer's report for March of 2023. Approve AEDs in Backton Hill Park, Valley Creek Park, and Battle of the Clouds Park. Approve agreement with the Great Valley School District for additional inspector services at 100 Linwood Drive, which we assume is going to be an admin building. Accept proposal from Leaf Flooring Covering for the removal and replacement of the treads and risers on the police staircase in the amount of $5,423. Accept the proposal from McMahon for the engineering design, bidding, and construction services work related for the traffic signal technology grant in the amount of $66,000. And finally, accept the proposal from McMahon to establish a traffic signal asset management plan in the amount of $20,000. Any questions?
None.
Hearing none, if we can have a motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
Have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, and passes. Meeting is adjourned. Wake up.